Following the reign of Justinian I, during which the empire lived its golden age, Byzantine architecture was relatively uninspiring and unproductive during the Dark Ages and the following Iconoclasm period. The economy of the state did not allow comprehensive building activities. However, when the Iconoclasm ended completely in 843, the Byzantine culture began to revive in many areas. The Macedonian dynasty, which began in 867 with the ascension of Basil I to the throne, continued for several generations as a period of stability for about 2 centuries. The borders of the empire were not only re-expanded, but the artistic and intellectual works increased in parallel with the resurgence of the icons. The Byzantine churches built during the years following the reign of Justinian I continued to exhibit the characteristics of his structures. The dome had become one of the indispensables, but they did not include any innovation in terms of plan or construction technique. However, following the iconoclasm, the churches built in the Middle Byzantine period had significant differences from the early Byzantine period and from the buildings constructed while the economic conditions were more favorable. First of all, compared to the large-scale structures of the period of Justinian I, new churches in the capital attract attention with their smaller dimensions. As the population of the city decreased, there was no need for larger churches. Moreover, these structures were modest in size, in line with the limited resources of the Middle Byzantine period. Secondly, the churches of the Middle Byzantine period came up with a new plan type, cross in square. Naos, the main place of worship, was square or rectangular, and it was entered after passing only one narthex in some buildings and two narthexes in others. The dome that was carried on 4 columns in the middle of the naos and the vaults extending in 4 directions formed a cross shape. The sections in the corners of this cross were covered with vaults or smaller domes. The building was firstly expanded towards east by another vault, then by the apse, and this section called bima was allocated for bishops. The Pastafarian cells on both sides of the apse, in which the ritual-related objects were preserved, were also covered by a vault or dome. When looking at the external structure, it is possible to perceive these divisions of the interior. Thirdly, these churches, which are closer to the human scale with a modest architecture, provided a suitable background for figurative descriptions, mosaics or frescoes, that covered the interior of the building and contained descriptions of Christianity. These paintings, which can hardly be seen in the interior of the huge churches such as Hagia Sophia, could be perceived more easily in the cross and square plant and relatively small buildings. After the iconoclasm, this new scale was the most appropriate to see figurative depictions that began to decorate the churches all over. The anonymous church built in the period of the Macedonian dynasty, converted into Atik Mustafa Pasha Mosque during the Ottoman period, the northern church of Konstantinos Lips Monastery built in 907, and Myroleion Church as the burial church of the family of Romanos Lekapanos are the early dated examples of cross in square plan type. Pantepoptes Church and Christ Pantocrator Church are also among the best preserved examples of the cross in square plan type. This second building is actually 2 churches built side by side with a burial chapel in the middle, and is larger than other Middle Byzantine churches. However, the mosaics and frescoes of these churches, all of which were converted into mosques, have not survived. In order to see the examples of this plan type decorated with figurative paintings, it is necessary to visit the structures of the late Byzantine period in Istanbul, which are now used as museums, namely the Kora Church and the Paraklesion of Pamma Christos Church. Because the cross and square plan type was not used only in the Middle Byzantine period, but also commonly in the late Byzantine period, and these 2 structures can be seen with the frescoes and mosaics preserved in their burial chapels.